Hello and welcome. My name is Marcos and this is Self-Psychology. And yes, I'm back here in New York from Puerto Rico where we brought to you last week's video. Now last week we spoke about happiness, right? Barbara sent us an email and she wanted to know what she needed to do to make herself happy. And we mentioned that there were basically two things she needs to do. One is unconditional self-acceptance, and the other is pleasure and mastery. Now we're going to talk a little bit about pleasure mastery in a bit. But before we get there, I'd like to wrap up the conversation on unconditional self-acceptance by saying that, if you remember correctly, unconditional self-acceptance means basically to accept yourself with all the great things about you and all the not so great things about you. And only then, once you start accepting yourself totally, is that you're in a good position to start working on yourself. Now the wonderful thing about unconditional self-acceptance is that once you accept yourself unconditionally, you start accepting other people unconditionally. And when you start accepting other people unconditionally, then you start disturbing yourself less. Because as you see, you are a fallible human being. So there are things that are great about you and things not so great about you. But there are also things that are great about other people and things that are not so great about other people. So if you come into the relationship knowing that already and being willing to accept it, then you have a better chance at dealing with whatever it is that's not so great about that other person. So if that other person does something that affects you, then you probably won't get angry because you expect, you know that this person is fallible and they're gonna do stuff like that. And since you're not angry, then you can make a decision. What do you want to do with that? Whether you want to continue being a friend or you want to remove yourself from the situation. The important thing is that you won't disturb yourself. Now, before we get into the second thing that we need to make ourselves happy, which is pleasure and mastery, I want to direct you towards my website, www.thejobinstitute.org. And I want to thank you all, because we're now receiving over 1,000 hits a day. And that's a huge thing for us. So we're really happy about that and we really appreciate it. Also, our videos are being downloaded, or we have over 300 subscriptions. So that means that over 300 people every week are downloading the videos automatically to their computers to watch them. And that's also amazing. It makes all this effort seem worthwhile. So we're working hard on this side and we're glad we're being appreciated. So thank you. Also, make sure if you know any people that are Spanish speaking, let them know that now the website is in Spanish and the videos have been translated as well in Spanish. So more Spanish-speaking people could benefit from the self-help videos. Well, let's quickly get into pleasure and mastery. Oh, before we go there, I'm sorry. Again, emails are greatly appreciated. My email address should be on the bottom of your screen. Pleasure and mastery. What does that mean? Pleasure, we all know what pleasure means. Okay, just doing things that give you pleasure, whatever that may be. And mastery, now what the heck is mastery? Mastery is sort of like, it comes from master. So it's sort of like challenging yourself. So what basically pleasure and mastery means is that in our lives, we need a good balance of things that makes us happy, pleasurable things, whatever they may be, and challenging things. Things that test us, things that we have to master. For example, if we're students, then we go to school and we're challenged. And that's good for our brain. That makes us happy. If we have a job that challenges us, that's also very good. And some people find challenges physically, like they'll go to the gym or they'll be in some sort of sport that challenges them physically. Regardless of the way you challenge yourself or you set up your life to be challenged, you need to be challenged. Okay? And I'm going to help you with how we get this accomplished. So now we have unconditional self-acceptance, and we can work on these two things together, and we have pleasure and mastery. Now what I want you to do for homework is I want you to take out your journal, your RABT journal, and I want you to write a pleasure list. Okay? Now the pleasure list is the following. It's things that brought you pleasure in the past. You're going to write them all down in your journal. For example, I used to like to go to the movies, and I no longer do that. I used to like to go out to dinner, and I no longer do that. I used to like to run, and I no longer do that. So all these things that brought you pleasure in the past, you want to jot them down. Things that bring you pleasure today. Things that you are doing currently that give you pleasure. For example, I like driving. That gives me pleasure. So I drive to work, and that makes me feel good. Or I like cooking, and I currently do that, and that brings me pleasure. So things that you currently do that give you pleasure. Finally, you want to write down things that you haven't done but always fantasized about doing. So things that you think are going to bring you pleasure. And future things. Things that you always wanted to do but never had an opportunity to do. Like go skiing, or taking a class on a comedy class. Whatever it is. Things that you thought, you know what, I always wanted to do that, and that will bring me pleasure. So now you have this huge pleasure list, okay, in your journal. We're going to put that aside for now. The second part is called the pleasure grid, okay? And again, this is another part of your homework. So what you're going to do is, in your book, you're going to write across the top every day of the week. So you're going to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay, right across the top. And then down the long side of the page, you're going to put the hours that you're awake. So if you wake up at 8 a.m. and you go to sleep at 11, then you're going to put 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, etc. up to 11 p.m. So now you have the days of the week this way and the hours that you're awake, right? And you have these boxes, okay? Now that's important, because in each box, you're going to put what is it that you do in the week. Now, I'm not talking about details. I'm not saying, well, I went to work and I did this spreadsheet and that spreadsheet, or I drove this car, or etc. No. This is how it's going to look. At the end of every day of the week, you're going to evaluate your day, and you're going to write, okay, well, I woke up at 8, and between 8 and 9, I had breakfast, I got dressed to go to work, and I left the house. Okay? So you're going to put that in the first box. Then you arrived at work at 9. And you work from 9 to 6, let's say. So you're not going to put everything you did in your day at work. No, but you're just going to put work. You're just going to write a line and work all those hours. Then you got home, and you changed, and you went to the gym from 7 to 8. So you're going to put gym. And then you read a book, or whatever it is that you did in that day. You're going to write it all down. Okay? You're going to do that for the entire day. Then you're going to go back and look at it, and you're going to write one of three things. Either a P for pleasure, a M for mastery, or an N for neither. So for example, when you woke up and you showered and you got ready and you had breakfast, well, for a lot of people that's not pleasurable or mastery. So they will put an N for neither. Then you went to work from 9 to 6. Now for some people, that's challenging. Now, what I want you to do there is evaluate the day. So if you normally have a challenging job, but that day it wasn't very challenging, or vice versa, and you evaluate that day. So this day, for example, it was a challenging day. You were challenged, you had to master certain things at your work, so you're going to put in that. And you got back, you went to the gym. That sometimes is pleasure or mastery or both. You're going to put a P or an M. And you read a book or whatever the case may be, but you're going to put one of those three letters. Okay, now you get the picture? Good, because that's very important for the next step. Once you complete the whole grid, so the whole 7 days of the week has gone by, and you have this great grid of all the things that you've done throughout the week, and you've evaluated them, whether they were pleasurable or mastery or neither, then you have to look at it. You have to see if you have a good balance of pleasure and mastery. And if you don't, then that's where the pleasure list comes in. Most people don't have enough pleasurable things going on in their lives. So what they would do is they would look at the grid and see where they can stick in some of these pleasurable activities that they have on the pleasure list. So for example, you notice that every day you come home from work, you just sit in front of the TV. And the TV is pleasurable for 1 hour, but after that it becomes boring. So you have a couple of blocks in there that you could put one of these pleasurable items in. The idea is to raise the level of pleasure in your life and raise the level of challenges in your life and keep a nice balance, okay? Some people may have a lot of challenges in their life but very little pleasure, and they have to balance it. Some people, a lot of pleasurable things in their life but not very challenged, and again they got to raise that. If they do these two things, okay, that will ensure that you will be a happy person and you will maintain your happiness. Because one of the things you must do after you do this pleasure mastery grid is to maintain it. Not let it go, not get lazy on it. So you want to continue to challenge yourself, you want to continue to add pleasurable things in your life. Great? Well, good. Like always, I like to give you an example. So in today's example, we have John. And John is an obese man who works, comes home, and sits in front of the TV from 6 to 11 when he goes to bed. His wife cooks, they have dinner, and his kids live in the house as well. So John wants to make himself happier. Okay? So what is John going to do? John, first of all, is going to learn how to unconditionally accept himself. Okay? He's going to look at his life and he's going to say, you know, there's a lot of great things about me and there's a lot of not so great things about me. So what are some of the great things about me? Well, I'm a worker and I'm a provider. So my family is doing very well. We live in this house and I'm working to provide for them. My kids went to college. I went to college, so I'm a smart individual. John needs to find all the positive qualities about himself, right? All the good things about himself. And then he wants to look at all the not so good things about himself. Like for one thing, he's obese. And he's not very happy about that. And by being obese, he's not very attractive to his wife. So these are things that are not so great about him, but yet they are who he is. So he accepts that. He needs to accept, I'm an obese person and I'm not very attractive to my wife any longer. Okay? That's fine. You know, now he has a good platform to move forward, to work on that. So John wants to make himself happy. So he accepts everything there is about himself And he accepts his wife as well, knowing that she's not very attractive to him. Because, again, she has great things about her, and she has not so great things about her. But we're talking about John here. So now John creates the pleasure list, and creates the pleasure grid, and he fills it out. And he realizes that he has absolutely no pleasure activities in his pleasure grid, and he has very little challenging things going on in his life. So he realizes that now that he's accepting himself unconditionally, that he needs to raise these two items, the pleasure and the mastery. So he starts to put in things that are more pleasurable to him, like going out for a walk. He used to like to go out in the country and walk. He no longer does that. So now he's going to walk for 1 hour each day of the week. So he incorporated something that's pleasurable to him. On the weekends, he's going to take his wife out to dinner. So he's going to add that in, and that's another pleasurable activity he's going to do. So you see how that works? He's incorporating more pleasurable things into his life. Secondly, he wants to be challenged. He's been at his job for many years, so he's not very challenged at his job. So he wakes up, and he goes to work, and he gets back, and he's not challenged at all in his day. So he has to raise the level of challenges in his days. So what is he going to do? He decided to start an exercise program, which is wonderful, especially for an obese person. So now, not only is he going to walk 1 hour a day, but he's actually going to walk to the gym. And while he's at the gym, he'll do, based on what his doctor recommends, he'll do either from a half hour to an hour of exercise. And that's challenging. That's challenging for a man that's obese, and that's challenging for him. But it'll make him so happy to know that he's doing it, that he's working on himself. He also wants to incorporate other challenging things. Like he wants to start to cook. So he's going to take a class to learn how to cook. And he also wants to build things out of wood. So he's going to take a class on building things out of wood, an online class. So he has time for many of these things, and what he's trying to do is raise his pleasure and raise his mastery. And I have a lot of hope for John, because if he sticks to this program, he's going to be one happy person. Thank you very much for joining me this week, and make sure you live a healthy and a happy life. Until next week.